So this is a reading from Ross Gay's preface to the Book of Delights. One day last July, feeling delighted and compelled to wonder about and share that delight, I decided it might feel nice, even useful, to write a daily essay about something delightful. I came up with a handful of rules: write a delight every day for a year, begin and end on my birthday, August 1st, draft them quickly, and write them by hand. The rules made it a discipline for me, a practice. Spend time thinking and writing about delight every day. It didn't take me long to learn that the discipline or practice of writing these essays occasioned a kind of delight radar. Or maybe it was more like the development of a delight muscle. Something that implies that the more you study delight, the more delight there is to study. Which is to say, I felt my life to be more full of delight. Not without sorrow or fear or pain or loss, but more full of delight.
One of the results of Ross Gay's year of writing daily about delight was a book called The Book of Delights. 102 essayettes, as he calls them, selected from the almost 365 that he wrote. The delights that he discovered and shares within the book range widely. In Tomato on Board, for example, he says, what you don't know until you carry a tomato seedling through the airport and onto a plane is that carrying a tomato seedling through the airport and onto a plane will make people smile at you, almost like you're carrying a baby, a quiet baby. The responses his baby tomato plant evokes from airline staff and other passengers and people passing him in the terminal are indeed delightful. Another delight he writes about is the process of pulling up bindweed. This tedious and, if you've had it in your yard, you know, necessary task requires him to get down on the ground and very gently follow each thread of bindweed, because if you break it, it will come back with a vengeance. And so he's brought into intimate proximity with what's going on in his garden, how the cabbages are getting nibbled, and the parsley is starting to get thick, and worms are tunneling through the soil. In another essay, his delight muscle transforms something that many, including me, might find annoying into a source of joy. He calls this essayette reckless air quotes, because a new friend does use air quotes, you know, these things, recklessly. He's been writing the daily essays for over 11 months by that point, and maybe that's why he's able to find delight in this friend's unconscious habit. Speaking of annoyance, probably my favorite essay in the book is about the state of feeling annoyed. And yes, he finds delight there and finds delight for his reader. All of them afford Gay delight, and his delight, like his smile in his author photo, is contagious. I thought of giving that to Gage to post up here, and then I thought, no, it's a teaser. Go look for the book, and you'll see his picture. See what I mean? Gay's reflections remind me that we can be contagious to ourselves. For good and for ill, our present self passes on its experiences to our future self. What we notice, what we lift up in our own awareness, you might say, what we open the door to and welcome on in, infects our whole day and the next day And so proceeding day by day our whole lives. As Ross Gay observes, the more we study something, the more there may be of it to study. What we record for ourselves, for others, we begin to notice more, and that amplifies its presence for us. Even if we aren't poets or essayists or even journal jotters, there are things that we amplify by our attention and other things that may wither because we don't notice them. It's as if we each do keep a nightly journal. We each have a book that we write. The ways we reflect on the day just past, the things we remember, the things we dwell on as we lie in bed, these affect that moment, our sleep, and the day to come. It's like we're tuning our radar with them. So this marvelous poet, Ross Gay, tuned his delight radar. What radar are we each tuning by what we notice and what we tell others and what we tell ourselves? What do you notice as you reflect on your day? Do you list the things you didn't do that you'll have to do tomorrow? Do you look back on the best moments you've had, like a sweet conversation with a 2-year-old or your first sip of tea in the morning? Do you remember all the mistakes you made? I hear you, Eric. And torment yourself by playing them over and over in your mind. It seems to me that whether we live alone or with others, we spend a lot of time with ourselves in the privacy of our own minds, in the internal conversation that goes on between ourselves and ourselves. So in the little room that you share with yourself, I wonder, what kind of roommate are you? Are you the kind of roommate who notices small gifts for which you offer thanks? Or do you only speak up when your roommate leaves the dishes overnight? Do you berate yourself? Or are you kind to yourself and appreciative of yourself? Because I want to tell you, your roommate deserves that. Now, it's important to observe the bad parts of our lives as well as the good. I'll come back to that in a little bit. But for a moment, first, let's notice that one thing that can happen with the things that we notice is that amplification. We're giving them more presence and more power. You're probably familiar with the practice of a gratitude journal. You might not know that its effects have been the subject of research. Dr. Robert Emmons, a psychology professor not far from here at UC Davis, has led research teams in tracking people as they cultivate gratitude through a gratitude journal. He reports that even 3 weeks of daily journaling about what one is grateful for has astonishing results: physical, psychological, and social. Physically, people in the study who started keeping a gratitude journal exhibited stronger immune systems. They were less bothered by aches and pains. They had lower blood pressure. They exercised more and took better care of their health, and they slept longer and reported feeling more refreshed upon waking than the control group. Psychologically, they had higher levels of positive emotions. They felt more alert and alive and awake. They reported more joy and pleasure and optimism and happiness than those who were not keeping a gratitude journal. This is 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Socially, people who kept a gratitude journal were more helpful and generous and compassionate, more forgiving, more outgoing, and possibly for that reason felt less lonely and isolated than the control group. Physical, psychological, social. One category he doesn't address is the spiritual. Well, that's our department. And for me, there is no doubt that gratitude is a spiritual gift. And like bindweed, it persistently grows. And it sends off shoots of other gifts. Maybe that's why the Psalms are such an enduring part of Jewish and Christian scriptures and the culture that they've shaped. Over and over, the Psalms, which are basically the hymn book of the Bible, although we've lost the music, we just have little musical notations and these lyrics. And the lyrics enjoin us to give thanks and praise, because living without gratitude is like refusing good food when it's spread in front of you. As the prophet Isaiah urges, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters. And you that have no money, come, buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Why do you spend your money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which does not satisfy? Listen carefully to me and eat what is good, and delight yourselves in rich food. And then, he says, you shall go out in joy and be led back in peace. The mountains and the hills before you shall burst into song, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. Now, as I promised, our lives, as we know, are not all sweetness and light, and so our daily book is not all sweetness and light. One of the things I admire and appreciate about Gay's book is that he doesn't shy away from pain or make delight this kind of whitewash that he paints over oppression. It's all there, mixed together. And with the hard stuff, as with the happy, what we notice more. This can have an amplifying effect on the things that lighten our hearts, but it can also shed a light on things that, like bindweed, are growing underground and need to be rooted up and exposed. An example from my own life. When I was in college, I had a favorite topic of conversation: how much work I had to do, how long the next essay was, how little sleep I was going to get, how stressed out I was. I was not alone. In any group of students, it was just the kind of topic of conversation that we fell into, like people in California start talking about what they're eating, and people in or not eating, and people in San Francisco, I don't know if Santa Rosa is like this. In San Francisco, it's all about real estate. It wasn't a particularly interesting topic, but it was one we could all get into. One person would begin, and the rest of us would chime in, tell me about it. And then something happened. A friend simply observed, no judgment, just noticed aloud that I talked a lot about how much work I had to do and how stressed out I was. And it made me wonder, was this what I wanted to amplify in my life? Was I blowing off steam? Or was I just building up more stress for myself, and maybe for the others around me? And realizing that, on reflection, it was the latter, I started to catch myself when I got going on that litany. It was like, with these words, my friend had acted as my journal, my complaint journal, reflecting to me the things I'd been giving the most attention so I could decide to give them less. And sometimes noticing the negative things like injustice, cruelty, unkindness, inequality is exactly what we need in order to address and uproot them. So the gratitude journal has become enough of a cultural thing that a writer named Meredith Shaw has spoofed it and published an alternative. Here's what the promotion says. Toxic positivity got you down. Sick of perfectly coiffed life coaches, those air quotes, life coaches with glowing skin and zero problems, telling you to manifest a better life by just choosing happiness? We are too. So sick of it, in fact, that we created the perfect repository for all your existential angst and daily gripes, introducing the Grievance Journal. I was really tempted to buy a couple for people in my life who shall remain nameless. But more seriously, she suggests that a grievance journal, this is a quote, can be a safe place for venting about life's annoyances. Writing about your sources of aggravation can help you identify problematic patterns in your life and think about ways you can make changes. And I think that could be a great use of a grievance journal, as long as you're not just griping, but you're actually saying, okay, now, what do I want to do now that I've dumped this stuff? A young man I knew grew up with a brother whose treatment of him was, to those of us who observed, borderline abusive. He dismissed whatever he said, critically assessed his clothes, his hobbies, his friends. My friend knows this now. He didn't really know it while he was growing up with it. He just kind of absorbed it. And then one day, he casually remarked to a new acquaintance that he and his brother weren't close, and she said, "Oh, yes. I've noticed when I've seen you together that he's always putting you down." He had never noticed that before. But this person, coming in with fresh eyes, she spotted it, and that tuned his radar. Could it be that his lack of closeness with his brother was not just a fact of siblinghood, just one of those things you get between brothers, or just this mysterious absence in their lives? Could it be the result of a pattern between them? A pattern of his brother belittling and insulting him, and his just kind of putting up with it? He told me that with this newly tuned instrument, I'm using Gay's words here, but he told me that something new began to happen. He began to notice himself when these put-downs happened. And now that he noticed, he could respond differently. He spoke up. He said, "Hey, that was mean." And this, in turn, shifted something in their relationship. His brother was surprised to hear that, a little defensive. And also, being challenged that way, he changed. I mean, they haven't become the best of friends. There hasn't been a complete change of heart, but things have definitely improved. My friend no longer dreads time spent with his brother. He even enjoys it. This is exactly what people are doing when they adjust their instruments of perception to notice the workings of white supremacy. Most people of color already notice them just fine. It's a survival skill. And I think for the same reason, for a kind of psychological self-protection, most of us white people don't notice white supremacy in action until we tune that radar. And then it's everywhere. And we can do something about it. Like the bindweed that will wrap itself around everything if we don't carefully, thoroughly, regularly pull it up, leaf, stalk, and root. I agree with the Grievance Journal folks, by the way. It's facile to suggest that all we have to do to be happy is choose happiness or gratitude or health or wealth, and it will manifest. That's a myth that's quite popular in our wealthy and fortunate culture that I think is not only facile but pernicious, but that's for another sermon. But what we attend to does matter. It does make a difference, because sometimes it takes a shift in attention or a little bit of work to become aware of things that go on all the time. After all, the human mind is very adept at relegating to the background things that happen frequently. It seems to be a part of our survival as a species, that we're not constantly, for example, bothered by an unpleasant smell or by a noise that goes on, and things fade into the background. So when we want to notice things, we have to work at it. Whether they're nasty comments from a sibling or the beauty of the dawn chorus. Practices of attention, like Gay's daily essayettes or a gratitude journal, disrupt this tendency, and they help us to notice what is slipped beneath notice. My daughter, who is now 18, made an observation several years ago, apropos of nothing. I think she was about 13, and she said, "You know what's great about being a little kid?" Meaning younger than she was then. "Everything is excitinger." She observed, when you get older, things get boring. And she's right. You know, one of the fun things and exhausting things about being with very young children is that everything is exciting to them. Try to take a walk with a toddler, and yeah, you walk agonizingly slowly, not because their legs are short, but because they want to stop and look at everything. Ants, crunchy leaves, dog poop. It's all so interesting. What an exciting world. And I realized as I turned over my daughter's words, there is no reason for this world ever to get boring. It's just as full of marvels as it was when we were tiny. It's full of things we don't know, things we don't understand, things we've just never noticed before. It's just that as we get older, we've kind of gotten used to the amazing things we see every day, so we may have to make an effort where amazement was just once effortless. Now it's ants, been there, seen those. But we have ways of addressing that, right? You can read E.O. Wilson's works on ants, and they will become exciting again. Or, for that matter, you just do what a young child does, if the adults around them don't prevent it. Sit down as close to the ground as you can comfortably get and devote 10 solid minutes to watching ants. Your boredom will fall away. Ants will get exciting-er. We just have to clear the ho-hum away from our perception. Sometimes it's cleared away with a gentle brush, and sometimes with a noisy, disruptive backhoe. Gay's book was published in early 2019, and I encountered it about a year later. You remember what happened in early 2020. Suddenly, we were living in isolation indefinitely and worrying about a deadly epidemic with no cure and no vaccine. And for many of us, our perception of our bodies was abruptly heightened. We noticed every cough, every ache. Was this the beginning of something really bad? Some of us live that way already and live that way still due to chronic illness or other reasons that we need to pay close attention to our bodies. This close attention can be a kind of journal, and it doesn't have to be limited to taking our temperature and tracking our symptoms. Noticing your physical self can make you aware of being able to stroke a cat's fur and pause and hear and feel the rumble in his chest and see the jewels in the depths of his eyes. Just focusing on the body that you're in right now can make you notice that you have the strength in your shoulders to propel your own wheelchair. That you are able to feel the air go in and out of your lungs. You become aware of wrapping your arms around someone you love, which could be yourself, and feel that they're alive, heart beating, brain humming. Remember how in the spring of 2020, being unable to visit the people who were important to us honed our awareness of them? Some people began having regular family Zoom calls, speaking with their loved ones, far more than they had in years. Isolation can be a prompt to call to mind what you appreciate about the people that you love, and maybe even to call and tell them that. Or just call them. Bring them close in a way that sometimes they're not even close when we're all in the same room together. Every day is a page. We may record on it gratitude, grievance, grief, fear, friendship, hope, longing, bitterness, or, like Gay, delight. They will all pass through regardless. The question for us is, which muscles do we want to develop? What do we want to pick up with our radar? What door do we want to fling open? What awareness do we want to cultivate? So much is beyond our control, but what we write in our daily book, that's for us to decide. My wish for you is this: that your awareness be for you a blessing, and that your daily book, whatever you write in it, help you to grow in love.